And if you would like to speak for either of these public comment periods, please make sure I can't talk this morning. Please make sure you have signed up on the sheets at the table by the door. That would be helpful. And now, to ensure there are no conflicts of interest, today for the board, I'll review this North Carolina statute 160D-109 on conflicts of interest for appointed boards. Members of appointed boards shall not vote on any advisory or legislative decision regarding a development regulation adopted pursuant to this chapter where the outcome of the matter being considered is reasonably likely to have a direct, substantial, and readily identifiable financial impact on the member. An appointed board member shall not vote on any zoning amendment if the landowner of the property subject to a rezoning petition or the applicant for a text amendment is a person with whom the member has a close familial, business, or other associational relationship. And is there anyone today that feels like they have a possible conflict?
No.
No.
Very good. Then we can proceed. And are there any announcements from the staff? All right, then that brings us to the roll call of board members.
Nancy Walter,
Here.
Carl Coon,
Here.
Jay Marino.
Here.
Anthony Cochran.
Here.
John Moore.
Here.
Everybody else is accounted for except Ken.
Okay. We'll hope so. And next we have the approval of the agenda for today.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. Then we need to also approve the minutes for December the 16th, 2024.
Motion to approve. Second. As written.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Then the minutes stand approved as they were written. And which brings us to our general public comment period. And has everyone who wants to speak signed up? There's no one to speak? All right, very good. Then I won't bother to talk about what the process is for that. So I guess we can now open up the public hearing for the ZPH 2024-00039 Long Shoals Road rezoning. Bobby Haney, Suzanne Mossberg, Outdoor Impressions LLC, Michael Schmidt, Sharon Anderson Tolley, and Kermit Tolley requested to rezone 5 parcels of land identified as tax lot pins 963465460 at 589 Long Shoals Road, 963565356 at 611 Long Shoals Road, 9634651411454 at 621 Long Shoals Road, 963465036 at 99999 Long Shoals Road, and 96346501212 at 631 Long Shoals Road from R1 Residential to CS Commercial Service, and 3 parcels of land identified as tax lots pins 96346533308 at 5 West Haven Drive, 96346555316 at 5 Curtis Drive, and 96346563376 at 99999 Curtis Drive from R2 Residential to CS Commercial Services. And we'll begin with a staff presentation followed by the applicant presentation. Okay.
It's on. Oh, okay. It's on. Okay. My name is Haley Madfis, and this is the review of CPH 2024-000-00039 Long Shoals Road Map Amendment. This hearing was properly noticed and all applicable parties notified of the meeting in accordance with general statutes and county code. That includes a legal ad in the local newspaper, notices mailed to property owners within 1,000 feet, a notice on the county's website, and physical postings on the site. The applicants are Bobby Haney, Suzanne Mossberg, Outdoor Impressions LLC, Michael Schmidt, Sharon Anderson Tolley, and Kermit Tolley. The owners are Bobby Haney, Jewel Gilbert, Outdoor Impressions LLC, Michael Schmidt, and Sharon Anderson Tolley. located at 589 Long Shoals Road, 611 Long Shoals Road, 621 Long Shoals Road, an unaddressed parcel on Long Shoals Road, 361 Long Shoals Road, 5 West Haven Drive, 5 Curtis Drive, and an unaddressed parcel on Curtis Drive. Okay, this area to be rezoned is a total of 8 parcels and a combined area of 5.7 acres. The current uses of these parcels are single-family home, vacant land, landscaping business, and auto repair tire shop. These parcels are all currently served by public water and are on septic. The application is to rezone from R1 and R2 residential to CS commercial service. You can see the current zoning map on the left side and then the proposed on the right side of the slide. This parcel is located in an area identified by the Buncombe County Comprehensive Plan Future Land Use Map as Mixed Use Neighborhood. This chart compares the dimensional standards of the zoning districts. If the rezoning request is approved, the minimum allowed lot size would decrease, the required setbacks from property lines would decrease, and the maximum allowed height of structures would increase. The type of uses allowed on the property would increase. R1 and R2 zoning are primarily lower intensity residential districts. CS zoning would allow for a variety of commercial uses in addition to higher density residential. Okay. For the surrounding developments include multi-use commercial, single-family residential, office, and a future townhome development. The rezoning request has been found to be consistent with a number of county plan recommendations, such as availability of city water, reasonable proximity to sewer, proximity to a transportation corridor, avoidance of overlay districts, floodplain, and proximity to other commercial areas. On this, based on this, staff recommends approval. Does the board have any questions from the staff report or the presentation?
Have you had any comments from surrounding property owners?
We have not received anything from, as far as I'm concerned, I'm aware.
I'm a neighboring property owner.
Ma'am, there'll be a chance for public input after that.
Can you tell me, does the ordinance require that as they then, if they get the zoning granted, they move where they must convert to public sewer?
Is that local ordinance or statute?
The converting to public sewer?
Yeah.
That we don't have any regulations requiring.
So neither ordinance nor statute?
No.
Thank you.
So the way, and this is something we've talked about, a lot, but the way Metropolitan Sewerage District is structured, the way the water providers are structured, is they don't speculatively extend lines. Since this is a legislative action, there's no real requirement. If you were to compare it to something like the Board of Adjustment, obviously you can't get 300-unit apartment complex approved without substantial wastewater treatment. So in this case, there's just no ability to require any sort of speculative or even require them to extend sewer, because there's nothing in the ordinance that would speak to that. In the future, that may change. But I will say too, this corridor is slowly changing over time with the development around it that's coming from kind of both sides, where you're seeing actual extension of sewer lines. One thing I can tell you though is when you do have, say, a large apartment complex, and MSD does require them to put in the size of a line that could accommodate other, say, businesses or even residences kind of along the way that would be able to tap into it. if that helps with your question.
Thank you.
Any other questions to the staff? All right, then do we have an applicant presentation?
I'm sure they'll be able to hear me.
People at home.
Oh, right. Good morning, board members. I'm Brian Golden. It's good to be here in front of you all again. It's been some time. I do represent all of the applicants in this case. Michael Schmidt, who owns Outdoor Impressions LLC, is sitting right next to me to my right. Thank you, staff. Fantastic presentation. I appreciate the staff's recommendation of approval. I'll try to keep it brief because it's early and I know John's kids are out of school. So Mr. Pennington is correct. Coming from the corridor of Brevard Road and Long Shoals Road, but then also coming from Long Shoals Road out by 26, things are moving down along that Long Shoals Road corridor. About a year and a half ago, if you saw up on the map, there was already a CS district up there. I think about a year and a half ago, that was rezoned. I don't remember what the original zone was. And so slowly it's making its way towards that area on that future land use map. It does have it as that neighborhood mixed use. Further on down at the intersection of Brevard Road and Long Shoals Road, it's that higher intensity use. Where all of it is the mixed use 2 area. I do think that that CS district does fit in that area. Not only does it match with what is already there kind of to the east along Long Shoals, but if you look back at that map, only 2 properties down going west on Long Shoals Road, there's an additional CS district. It allows for different types of mixed uses, higher density development for housing, which, as we know, we all need. You'll see all of the housing that's kind of developing right behind it. If there were some community commercial developments on those properties, I think it could benefit all of those residential homes and apartments, multifamily homes that are being built right in that area. It lessens the ability or the need to get in your car and drive somewhere. I'm not predicting what kind of commercial uses can come in there, but with that wider array of commercial uses, you could potentially have a walkable small little community in that corridor based upon all of the houses that are already being developed and the potential for increased density on these acreages. There is a car wash and maybe the tire shop that's just kind of north and east of where we're asking the balance of the properties to be zoned CS. There's a ambulance service that is a legal non-conforming use that potentially I think would bring it into conformity. My client has a landscape business there, which is non-conforming now. We would apply for permits, bring it into conformity with the CS district if it's approved. But you can see right here what I was talking about, where the CS developments are on both sides. The residential development, the majority of the residential development that exists in that area would be separated by roads, except the portion of residential development that is kind of south and west of these blocks of property. And I believe one of the neighbors who lives or owns one of those properties is here to talk about it today. So I do think that there is significant benefit. Although staff didn't think that the CS district fit into the mixed use neighborhood, I would make the argument that it does, notwithstanding the fact that it allows extra or additional uses. It has similar features as what was designed for that future land use designation. I think it's a good fit. Oh, and what I will say, I think, Mr. Kuhn, you had asked if anybody has reached out to staff. I've had several neighbors on the north side of Long Shoals Road along that corridor. It's the folks that own like the Tyner Construction Building. There's a real estate office right there, and somebody else. There's a piece of property that has a big sign on it that says for sale, commercially zoned, but it's really not commercially zoned. They have reached out to me and asked if they could jump onto this petition. But once they made those initial communications with us, they never got back in touch with me. So we did have some positive input from the folks on the other side of Long Shoals Road. But I didn't push for them to jump on it. It seemed like it was better just to keep all of my folks together, and then if they want to do it at a later time. But we were approached by those folks on the north side.
As this area has developed over the last 25 years, does the DOT have any plans to widen this road?
I'd like to say that they do with all of the additional apartments that are going on. John's been in those hearings in front of the boards of adjustment, and the big issue is traffic and what are they going to do. So you can go online and look. I don't think that
I just didn't know if you knew.
that they've got a plan, but certainly they are considering like putting a center turn lane in down there and widening it. But that is way down the road, in 2035. But nothing right now.
I think my biggest concern, Jay, to your point, is there may be something that appears on the STIP with all the damages that we've encountered in Helene. I'm just worried that's going to be pushed even further down the list at this point.
I'm just curious what the status of it was.
And if you all want, I'm happy to share. It'll take a little bit of guidance, but not too much. I can provide the access to the STIP, and I think I can even break it down by county. If you're interested, I'll provide that information to y'all.
I'd like to see it.
Okay, we can do that for you.
Yeah. I mean, it's very easy to read. They've got them all designated in different shades of colors and where those improvements are proposed. Sometimes it's a little hard to navigate from one of the websites to another one, which shows you the different plans. But
no, I think the point's well taken too, because this is a perfect example of an area where, I think as staff said, as it has grown. Well, it grows for a number of different reasons. One, we continue to make changes to the zoning. Two, it happens naturally. And then the question of, well, what is DOT doing? And my experience is constantly playing catch up and never in a proactive role that would say, oh, you've changed your zoning. Maybe we should look at our plans to allow this area to comply with the uses or adequately service the uses you intend for it. I don't think that's a reason to say no to this, but
and a lot of time on commercial developments, to your point, some of the conditions are to make improvements based upon the traffic impact analysis, right? DOT will look at it and say, oh, you've got to have a right in, right out only. And so they will put on the developer some of the burden of making improvements to entrances or stoplights, bulb turnarounds on major roads, on Sweeten Creek. But anyways, that's neither here nor there, but there may be some, if there's some, multifamily development that happens on those sites in 15 years, the department may require some improvements to the roadway themselves, turn lanes and whatnot.
If it's helpful to the board, DOT has done a really good job over the years with checking in with staff anytime they propose projects. We have a transportation planner on staff. They'll ask questions like, is this corridor changing? Why is it changing? What projects have been approved in the past? And these also help with, they've changed their policy. We've talked about complete streets. So if you've identified certain corridors that say need a sidewalk or other sort of treatment, they'll build it as part of the project. Sometimes we can get as many as 3 to 4 requests per week where we fill out basically a charter or a worksheet for whatever project they're proposing.
These parcels, the sum is about 5.5 acres.
Yeah, it's 5.7 acres in total of all 8. And it does, I mean, you see the weird kind of zoning right now. You've got R2 in some areas, but then the R1, which has a large commercial, I think it's an ambulance, Nate, like a private ambulance service.
Medic,
Been there for
Hollies
years.
have operated it for years. Quite frankly, when we initially did countywide zoning, that was an inappropriate zone for a business that existed well before countywide zoning. His company is even at one time contracted with the county to provide some overflow ambulance services, but you'll see the cars around there say medic.
2 lots down, you have the tow truck spot. I mean, this is
Yeah,
a wide range of commercial uses.
all along that corridor and with those houses. I like the idea. I mean, that's a tough road to cross if you were trying to get to a commercial use on the south side of Long Shoals for the residential uses on the north side. But it may limit the need in the future. It may limit the need of trips per day. My dog groomer was there. I might take the risk and run my dog across the street. But it is a busy road. But it is growing.
I guess this is for the staff, and it's just a curiosity question. So in the history of all of this, I mean, I think anybody who's been here for a while has realized how much the whole south end of Asheville and Long Shoals Road has developed. How did they get so many mixed uses out there? I mean, these residential things, I mean, the residential was there and then the commercial started coming in. How did all that happen exactly like that?
Well, sometimes you describe the county sort of as a hodgepodge. Think about Merriman, think about corridors like that, where at one time they were all houses. Over time, we check the tax codes and it says converted residence.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you start to see the progression. That's where we start to get the first signs that corridors are changing. In this instance, I believe the landscape business started out as a home occupation. It's sort of outgrown that use.
Mm-hmm.
So these things just sort of occur over time. This would certainly rectify uses that have been there. If I took you through the progression of zoning history just on this corridor, we've had 2 previous rezoning actions, one being the tow yard, one being the little strip center that upzoned a couple of years ago. And then, of course, all around it, you've got the larger scale developments that have taken place, mostly residential. They're good with their district. But once you get out onto the main corridors,
Right.
you pick up medium to heavy commercial.
Well, I was going to say that whole road seems to, starting what's closer into Skyland, I guess, has been commercialized, and now it's reaching down to this end. And it's just, I mean, it's kind of a natural progression, but you just wonder how that exactly happens.
Yeah, I think Nate hit the nail on the head. I think it was home occupations, like across the street, Tyner Construction probably was the house that they operated their construction company out of, and it just got so big. Now it is Tyner Construction.
Right.
I don't know that anybody lives in it.
Well, I believe that, I mean, based on my memory, they got in there before the county zoned.
Oh, maybe before '09
They
or
just
I
didn't
think there's a good
catch
bit
it.
of this.
I think they just didn't catch that they should have said, hey, give us commercial.
give it. Yeah.
I mean, the tow yard's office is the old house. I
Mm.
mean, that's how much. I had a question. This would be more for staff, but Mr. Goulden might have thoughts on it. And I think it's important for all of us to be keeping this in mind because of the change that came in December with SB 382. Could you talk to the rest of the board about, in the past, we've been able to make zoning changes and then conceptually be able to change them back. What is the status of the law of the ability to go backwards in light of SB 82 to make changes to the zoning that would eliminate uses or restrict the density. So I have my own thoughts on that, but I think it's important for people to understand that if we move in a certain direction, we may not have the ability to move back going forward.
Mr. Nor, I definitely think that that is an issue. I believe that there may be somebody filing a lawsuit challenging that provision at this time, but from all I understand, that provision stands.
Yeah.
About the ability to not downzone, I guess would be the word that they're using. So that's something that we are paying attention to.
Would it be fair, Kurt, in your assessment, this, just to state it plainly, if we move, this would be a more generous, this would sort of be an upzoning type situation, more uses would be allowed. Essentially under SB 82, we couldn't go back if we ever wanted to.
Well, assuming that the provision in SB 82
Stands, it's not stricken down.
The law as
As
it
of
stands right now, you cannot go back and downzone.
So once uses have been allowed, they can't be taken away.
Right. My understanding is anything could change, especially when it involves legislators. But something happened down east. Someone got incredibly upset. A nuclear sort of provision was placed into this bill. My understanding is there's so many people worried about it. It may be short-lived. It may be taken out. Lawsuit might.
Yeah, I know that a lot of the municipalities are actually very worried about this provision and their ability to effectively zone. I haven't heard so much from the county perspective, Nate. I don't think that they're.
No, I think it was more driven towards municipalities. I think municipalities are worried about initial zonings if they were to say like annex a property that was in an unincorporated county.
Or if they're doing like a complete rezoning and they're, like if we decided to completely rezone the county again, and then you couldn't necessarily downzone some of the properties that are currently, in those like intermediate areas.
So
My understanding was that the applicants are the owners of this property, so they signed off on this rezoning, right? So then if they came and said they wanted to downzone it, then that's fine. That was my understanding.
Totally agreed.
Right?
Yes, if the
Okay.
applicants want to. But for example, if the county should decide, you know what, this wasn't such a great idea, and the county wanted to initiate it, we wouldn't be able to do that. And the reason I tee this up is to ask, is there any aspect of this zoning change that restricts the use or makes it or increases the burden from that aspect that could otherwise be challenged down the line? And that might be more to Mr. Goulden's.
Sure, yeah, so SB 382, right, it's got two little triggers. It basically says you can't downzone and create a non-conforming use, right? So it leaves open the fact that if a use is already non-conforming and you downzone that parcel, if it's still non-conforming, did you create it at that time, right? So that's one of the issues. The other issue is that it relates to areas, zoning, non-residential zoning areas. And I think this CS has a residential component to it. So is it really, if the county wanted to say, we don't really like CS right there, it didn't actually have the effect, because it's could it go and down zone? I think that there could be an argument made because it says in non-residential zoning districts, and this does have a residential component to it. The CS does.
Every
So
zoning district does in Buncombe County.
yeah, so maybe that opens it up to, hey, we're not violating that SB 382.
But you're not seeing any restrictions that keep, that's what I'm really trying to get at is, are we doing anything that has a potential problem because it restricts what you otherwise could do? I see the setbacks are larger or more generous, I should say.
That's
They're
right.
smaller, which makes them more generous. Everything else seemed to be giving more uses.
Yeah,
more
and there's
for it.
no up zone, but
Okay.
that's that's just a zoning migration. It's the development's moving that way. We're migrating the zoning to fit that. It doesn't have anything that's more restrictive
Thank you.
that I'm aware of.
If it helps the board, I think one of the things we learned since we were late to the zoning game as a county is we don't have a pure play zoning districts. We have one, it's called the airport. But other than that, we really strive to have mixed use districts and not overly segregate. And that's where I think a lot of communities have gotten in trouble for a number of things, is that they've been too particular with what you can have in a district.
It's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. If no more questions, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, then that brings us to the time for the public comment part of this hearing. So if anyone is wishing to make public comment, I'll be sure you signed up.
Morning, everyone. My name is Kimberly Ramsey. I'm the owner of 641 Long Shoals Road, which adjoins this property. I came here mostly today to just learn about what's going on. I feel like a lot of communities, the residents don't know what's going on and don't stay in front of it. So I don't have any particular opposition to this. I'm not even going to pretend that Long Shoals Road is not going commercial. I do have some questions about what happens to neighboring properties. I'm not sure that's right to present to the board, probably personal research, but really just came to educate myself on what's going on with my neighborhood. This property's been in my family since the 50s, and I remember playing in Long Shoals Road as a child, and I can't even drive in it now. So the idea that Mr. Golden thinks that it's going to be a walkable community is dangerous.
It might be a pipe.
It might be. But anyway, I just came here as an education and a concerned citizen. Thank you all for your time here.
Can you point out which property is yours?
So my property is 641. It adjoins Outdoor Impressions. Michael Schmidt. Thank you, Jay. That's all.
Thank you for coming. Okay, is there any more public comment? No? All right, then I guess we can move on to the board discussion.
I'm prepared to make a motion.
Okay,
I just a little bit
Sure.
of conversation on this one. I think the bigger thing for me in these, and you see not immediately around, well, I guess immediately around it, you see some of the residential structures that I would assume, at least based on the information that we have, are still being used that way. My only, and I'm going to vote in favor of this, but in general, the 50-foot height change from 30 feet is a pretty big thing when you have neighboring residential. And then I also get concerned with the reduction of the setbacks going from 20 to 10 feet in all directions. And obviously we don't know what the property is going to be used for, and I don't want to know what the property is going to be used for. But I think in general, those are things that concern me when I see it coming into surrounding residential areas. I still think it makes sense for this corridor in general and how it's moving. But I know that can be addressed in a special use permit. But special use permits are also a challenge for those who come in, and those are just my observations. Otherwise, I think it makes perfect sense for the.
Just to note, we do have buffering requirements for commercial adjacent to residential uses. So the 20-foot buffer, it can be, can either be an evergreen buffer or with zoning administrator approval, it can be something else like a berm or a fence. So just to note.
Yeah, I think with a 50, and again, we don't know, but with a 50-foot tall building and tiny trees, that's not much, at least initially, but I think it is something that's a tool in the toolbox.
any other comments before we get ready to close the hearing and then make the vote?
Do we know how close MSD sewer is to this?
We do. So
I was trying to pull that up too, and I couldn't see
she'll
that.
turn the layer on, but it definitely serves the apartment complex to the north.
I figured it did.
And then if you'll back out just a little bit more, it should start, see it's populating now. And then Haley, if you'll go just to the northeast, you'll see the line there at the strip center. So it's like so close on both sides.
But it would require the developer, if he were to do something to extend that sewer to his property.
Whatever next development triggers an MSD line, it will be sized appropriately, or we will start picking up cross connects. actions of the other folks. And that's why in the future, we've really got to have some long-range planning discussions about water and sewer. Because right now, this incremental growth based on development, it's really just not keeping pace with where we are as a county and our growth needs.
Well, it changes the development pattern from those who can afford to put in the infrastructure to a concerted plan where the county says, here's where we want to target it.
Do you have any idea when those kind of talks will start happening?
No, I quietly push, but I think we've talked about this before during the comprehensive plan. The days of we don't do that, that's NCDOT, or we don't do that, we really need to get rid of those days and bring it to a better change for what we're really trying to accomplish.
Right.
To John's point, I mean, we're not a sewer provider, we're not a water provider, we're not a road provider. And so that makes it a little awkward sometimes when we're trying to be change agents for those conversations.
And if we don't have them though, it's never going to.
Nope.
We're always we're always gonna have an affordable housing problem.
Right.
There's ways to chip away at our problems. We know what our problems are. It's just, how can we start thinking outside the box of how to accomplish solving those problems?
Right. Okay.
I'd make a motion to,
Well, let me
yep, please.
close the hearing first.
Sure.
Okay.
Quick question.
Yes.
The sewer lines are the green on this map?
That's correct. And the green indicates public, and there's some other colors on there. Sometimes you'll see a private line. Private lines always go to the public lines. But yeah, green lines are usually at a minimum of an 8-inch line. If you're smaller, you're typically a private line. 8 inches is a good service line.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other thoughts? Then we will officially close the public hearing period for this, and we'll get ready for our vote. And just for the public record, in case anyone doesn't understand how this process works, I'd like to read the board basis for decision making. The board must determine if there is a reasonable basis for requested change in the light of its effect on all involved, including the following considerations. The requested change does not directly or indirectly result in the creation of spot zoning, which this did not. The size of the tract in question, compatibility of the change with the adopted 2043 comprehensive plan, and it mostly did that. The benefits and detriments resulting from the change for the owner of the newly zoned property, their neighbors, and the surrounding community. We heard nothing negative voiced about that. And relationship between the uses envisioned under the new zoning and the uses currently present in the adjacent tracts. And as a result, we have the following options that are available to the board. We can recommend approval of the proposed rezoning as it is consistent with the Buncombe County 2043 comprehensive plan as presented. Or we can recommend approval of a portion of the proposed rezoning as it is consistent with the Buncombe County 2043 comprehensive plan. Or we can recommend denial of the proposed rezoning as presented as it is inconsistent with the Buncombe County 2043 comprehensive plan. So that's kind of the process.
So I would make a motion to approve the rezoning because it is consistent with the Buncombe County 2043 plan, does not create spot zoning, and provides benefit to the landowners as indicated by the staff presentation and presentation by council.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Very good. The motion passes. And you stated that very well. And I guess that brings us to adjournment. That's the
Move
last
to
thing.
adjourn.
Can I, sorry,
Oh, sure.
just as, I would like to request maybe at our next or upcoming meeting, a presentation on SBA 382 and the impact it is, at least as it is, as of that date. And who knows what will happen as of that date on our tools under the comp plan. Because I think it's a huge, to say it's a sea change is a understatement in my view of how impactful this is, at least while it is in place.
That's fine. I actually reached out to our lobbyist and asked the same thing. So I'm waiting on an update. I think I'm coming next month to give you all an update on floodplain and floodplain
Great.
management. So I can just piggyback if that's okay with y'all.
That'd be great.
Sounds good. We appreciate it.
Of course, Kurt means you'll have to help me.
Sorry, Kurt. I'm doing one as well, so just not here.
Are you, just out of curiosity, have you seen something in your office?
There's a really great Coates Cannon summary that came out from Adam Lovelady that really lays out the here's what we don't know and here's what we do. And if that's all we got in an email blast, that'd be more than enough to get your mind swarming about the possibilities. But I do think I'd love to see it tailored with, okay, well, here's what we were thinking about this, this, and this. For example, let's go back to our short-term rental conversation. And right now, you probably, well, I won't speak for you, but you probably have some thoughts on what that allows us to do and not do, just so that we have an update on, well, okay, where are we right now? So that was what I was.
Is that subcommittee back up and running?
No, non-essential boards and committees are still paused while we continue to reallocate staff working on all things recovery. For
Right.
instance,
No,
while I'm
shortfalls.
planning director, that those three letters after my name stand for certified floodplain manager. So you can probably assume what I've been doing a lot of lately. So,
And even hearing how this might impact the floodplain, because there's speculation that it does, and how we make those changes and whether we
Yes,
can
and
do
I'm-
what we're trying to achieve because of that.
yeah, and I'm going to give you a robust presentation on exactly those kind of questions.
Very good.
Sorry, thanks.
Oh, thank you. No, I'll get information. Appreciate what all of y'all are doing. Thank you. So now,
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. We are adjourned. Thank you all.